Welcome to the CFL Outsider, a short series of totally impartial hot takes, odd takes, and generally unconventional opinions on the CFL and Canadian football, with your host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds.
Hey kids, welcome back to the CFL Outsider for week 20. Hey, who stole the parody? I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased, and frankly of two different minds, presenter and host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Why two minds this week? Well, we've reached a point in the season where being a fan can be a little bit of a drudge. Most of the teams have got nothing to play for. Teams that are out of the playoffs are treating it as a preseason game. Teams that are in the playoff are resting people and hoping they don't get hurt, protecting their players, protecting the schemes. You know, overall, probably the last 2 weeks have been, I would say, the most boring weeks of the seasons. Not that the games have all been terrible. There have been stuff that's been exciting. Parts of it have gotten worthwhile, but overall, just not what we've been used to. Not the, especially after such a wonderful, exciting season, unpredictable season like this. So, one side of my own personal little Janos is feeling a bit bummed out. But on the other hand, playing fantasy at this time of year is also really difficult. There's a lot more variables than there are during the regular season. You don't know who's going to start until you see the depth charts. So if you're picking your team before they're all out, that makes it tougher. If a good player is starting, is he going to stay in the game? Is he going to play? I don't know. And yet still, this is why the other side, I did quite well. My best score, well, not my best score, but my best ranking this week. I got 164.9 this week, and I was ranked 104th. Only time I've been anywhere close to that top 100. My best score of the year was back in, week 5, 183.9, but I was still only 253rd, so nowhere near close to it. And then the week 6, I followed that up with 74.4, and I was 4,897th for the week. So 104 for the week. I'll take that. Yes, I will. I leaned on Hamilton this week. I thought Bo was going to have a good game. Teamed him up with Tim White and Greg Bell at the running back. And coming out of that, Bo had 74 points. He was my captain, so he got doubled, but came out 74 points, and I had 111.1 after the first game. And then the rest of the players all did fairly well, got what they were supposed to do done, and got me some points, except for William Stanback, who went out a bit early and was a little disappointing. But overall, that's why the other side of the Janos on me is just smiling. I'll take it. Pick 'em, well, I went 2-1. I really didn't see the Lions bouncing back that much, and anyway. But so I picked Montreal in that game. But otherwise, I'm 50-27, or depending how you count them, 48-27-2 for the season. So again, I'm happy with that as well. But let's talk about the BC for a bit. Let's talk about the CFL's latest feel-good story. The redemption of Vernon Adams. Poor Vernon was done bad by. They done him rotten by bringing Nathan in. And he just hasn't been treated well, but he's handled it good. And the Lions have been playing like crap, and he's still been in there pumping the team up. And that part is true, yes. So this week they decided to start VA. And voila, everything's perfect. They come out and they win 27-3 over a team that's the defending Grey Cup champions. Obviously, everything's fixed. This is VA's team. This is VA's team. This is VA's team. Let's just keep repeating that. Really? I mean, really? What happened? Did the players all sort of march into the coach's office and lay their jerseys down on the desk just like the guys did in Rudy to get VA back out there? Now, to be clear, this is not a critique of VA. He has done, from what I've seen, everything he can in his role to make this team better, to get them pumped up and get them playing. He has done a fantastic job, and I give his character full credit. But what about the rest of the team? They're the ones that leave me gobsmacked. These are professional football players. They're paid to play at their highest level every week. And so the coach decides that, oh, their best buddy isn't going to be the quarterback for a while. And they all go into a sulk. And they just stop bothering. Oh, we don't want to play. VA's not in there. I don't want to try so hard. How can we win without VA? And then they get their way. And they come back and they play like heck. And that just disgusts me. It strikes me as being the worst of the self-entitled stereotype that the young generation seems to get these days. You know? And yeah, sure, they got a convincing big win in a game where everything was biased in their favor. But what happens in the playoffs? If the Lions want to go to the Grey Cup, they have to get through two teams who have shown that they play well regardless of the circumstances. Hell, one of the head coaches even preaches the standard is the standard. You play to the standard. And the Lions are going to run through that gauntlet with a team where the quality of the play depends on good vibes, where they're not going to fold if, suddenly things go wrong and they just stop feeling it. I don't see it. I've got two things to say to Mr. Amar Doman. First of all, thank you for getting involved. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for the BC Lions and the CFL overall. The league is much better with you as an owner. And the second thing, once this team folds its tents in the playoffs, burn it to the ground. Get rid of the GM, the coaches, everything. Bring in a new group that understands positive football culture, that really understands it. And then let them decide which of the players are worth salvaging and which ones need to be cut or traded to rip this rot out of the organization. If you don't, the fans will continue to suffer with teams that look like they're great on paper, but somehow just keep coming up short again. Because I got to tell you, brother, thinking a team with this kind of me first locker room mentality is going to win the big one, that's a lion that just don't roar, man. Anyway, that's out of my systems. Let's get on to the game. Game 1. Calgary 20 at Hamilton 42. Still a BO-LIEVER. Marshall Ferguson opened up the weekend with slapping down a CFL penultimate weekend. I loved it. Gotta like the big words in the broadcast. Now you could tell right from the start that Bo was in the zone. He looked so much at ease, so comfortable right in the first drive that at one point he did get hit a little bit. Helmet bumped up against his helmet a little bit, and where most quarterbacks would be turning to the ref and complaining and yelling for a penalty, Bo does a quick turn with a quick point and going just to the ref. You got that right? Okay, we're back to it. I'm going on. And the penalty was called. He's calling his own roughing penalties. He was so much in the zone. And I got to say, I want to thank Bo and Tim White for putting together a quick touchdown and starting my fantasy stuff off for the weekend really good. Meanwhile, things were not going so well for the Stamps. They started out with a drive where they got 3 first downs, but then threw an interception. Then they followed that up with a 2 and out. And then another 2 and out, and a punt that got shanked and got them a net of 10 yards. They're obviously feeling desperate, and they didn't help themselves out. They called before the first quarter's over. They're in a 2nd and 4, I think it was. They run a play that gets them the first down. Hey, it's the first down. But no, because the bench has somehow called a timeout just before the snap of the ball. So the play doesn't count. And ironically, they send in the play they want, and the first play would have got the first down because they've run it. You can see it happening. The second play doesn't get the first down. It was that kind of game for them. They get stuffed and they have to punt. And while all this is going on, Bo looks like he's playing against air, frankly. It seemed like he just decided, forget about the game. I'm just going to put on a quarterbacking clinic here. So I got to thank him and Tim again for a 2nd touchdown in my fantasy real quick. Double dip. Yeah. In fact, Bo was scoring so quickly that at the end of the first quarter, All Calgary had for offense was one drive with 3 first downs, 2 2-and-outs, and they were down 14-0. But they still had an almost 2-minute edge in possession. Bo was just getting the ball. Boom, score. You go. Oh, you took 3 plays? Okay, we'll take one again. Boom. Hamilton managed to get their 3rd touchdown on the first play of the second quarter. So basically it's 20 points because they missed the convert in 1 quarter. Only Hamilton could stop Hamilton. A little later on, they were down again. Second and, I don't know, not too much. They were close down to the goal line. They got the first down, but Woodmansey took a 15-yard misconduct roughing, which they didn't show us again, and they got bumped back and had to kick a field goal. But that was the only way they were getting stopped. It wasn't like Calgary at that point was doing anything to stop them as a team. Now, Robertson did give the Stamps fans a little something to cheer about with a pick 6 at the end of the first half. Very nice play, looked good, and it earned him the halftime interview. Now, he was obviously ready for that. He'd been training hard because on the enhanced feed, TSN showed that he clocked out at over 27 CPMs, cliches per minute. On the good news side for Calgary, Parity can still kick. He is so accurate that on one of the touchdowns, when it was already obvious the score wasn't really going to matter anyway, he decided to just show off by bouncing the convert off the top of a goalpost. How many kickers can do that? Not the side, the top of it. A doink out. How many can do that? Now, second half opened with a nice play by Kobe Williams from Calgary. Dunbar had got a pass and was going down the sidelines, and Williams ran him down and punched the ball out from behind. The ball traveled 30 yards in the air. Think about how hard they're punching at that ball to get it out there and how hard it is to keep possession as a receiver or running back. 30 yards in the air before it bounced and doinks and ran out of bounds. And, of course, the way Calgary's luck was going, it went out of bounds in the end zone, so it's Hamilton's ball back where it was fumbled, and they get a field goal out of it. Hamilton did lose some focus early in the second half, and they let Calgary get back in it. They got a touchdown, and they got a 2-point convert, and then a field goal. So they were, putting some points up with it. And also, there was a point in the that second half where Keandre Smith developed a serious case of alligator arms when he had a pass right across the middle down near the goal line, almost cost an interception for Bo. Now, Keandre, watching him play, he runs nice routes, and he's got good hands. He can catch. But it's fairly obvious he likes the big play a lot more than he likes taking any contact at all. Glory is great with him. Going over the middle, not so much. But if you're not going to protect the ball in a situation like that, if you're not going to sell out and make sure that your team isn't giving it up, you're not going to stay there that long. And then in the fourth, Bo threw one of the prettiest touchdown passes you're ever going to see to Dunbar. The throw went down to about the 3-yard line. When Bo released the ball, you couldn't see Dunbar. There was a triangle of 3 Stampeder defenders, 1 back, 2 forward, and it looked like Bo was throwing the ball right into that, an easy interception, until Dunbar out of nowhere flashed through the middle of the trio, took the ball, and then scooted on into the end zone. A beautiful play, wonderful play. Now, Matty Dunnigan had the color call on the game, and he was saying nice throw, but he also said, but over on the other side, there was somebody wide open in the end zone, and I looked, and yeah, he was. Somebody wide open. Bo missed him. But I wonder, did he? Or did Bo was in the zone, and did he just see that and go, too easy, I'm going to go over here. Whoosh, where I got to put it in a window that big. Oh, yeah. Bo was on. Got to love it. There was also a point about 3 minutes left in the game. Calgary some of their players were still trying hard, and Clarence Hicks, who's turning into a very nice D lineman for the Stamps, he got a beautiful get off and a nice pass rush that he just went straight around everybody and sacked Bo on a great play. The play was so pretty that Jordan Murray was kind of entranced by it and just didn't even bother trying to block. He just looked at it. Oh my God, that was a nice sack, man. What else can I say? All I can say, Greg Bell is a very patient running back. We saw that in this game, and he got up, I think 139 yards, but he earned it. But very good at waiting for the blocks to develop. There was a point where Cameron Judge took a rather bad penalty, and then on the sideline, TSN gives us a shot of him and, who was it? Bentley Sanders, his teammate, who might have been criticizing the penalty, I don't know, but all of a sudden Judge turns around and gives him a bareheaded headbutt. Wham! Maybe things aren't that great in the Stamps locker room after all. There was also a spot where they went for it on third down, Stamps did. Tyson Philpott stumbled on his cut. It happens, you know, you get caught up sometimes. Your feet just aren't there. Bad timing for it. But anyway, they turn over in downs. So they go to the sidelines, and TSN gives us a shot of oh, did I say Tyson? I meant Jalen. I might have said Tyson. If I did, anyway. So they give us a shot of Jalen Philpott and Tommy Stevens standing there obviously talking about it. Now, this shot came from kind of a higher angle. Maybe it came from a drone or something like that up there. But it was amazing. The two of them were like a couple of 2-year-old kids suddenly seeing a firefly. They're just staring up at this thing completely entranced. Nice that their minds are in the game. And let's see, what else can we say? Oh, you got to kind of have feel for Jake Maher. He's tried his best. He's done his best. He doesn't fit that system. Maybe he'll go somewhere else and make it work. But basically what we're watching right now is somebody being fired in slow motion. He doesn't even have the luxury of, here, sorry, you're not fit anymore. Here's security, see you out the door. He's got to sit there week after week and watch himself just very slowly be fired. And a final thought on this game, this marks the second time that Bo has had a huge game, 5 touchdowns and over 400 yards against a team from Alberta this season. And Alberta doesn't have a team in the playoffs this year for the first time since there have been 2 Alberta teams in the league, apparently. Yeah, not a coincidence. And that takes us on to game 2. Ottawa 31 at Toronto 38. Would it have been a brown back? Ottawa started out with a pretty good return by Khalil Pimpleton, a 29-yarder. And they got their only bit of luck in the first quarter when he celebrated by punching one of the sideline officials. Inadvertently, of course. Yeah! Oh, sorry, man. And luckily didn't get flagged. I've seen less than that flag before. Now, the Argos played well in that first half. It really did. On their first drive, they marched right down to the goal line. But again, we got to see a little bit of sort of how the Chad's mind works. Because they're down 1st and goal on the 1. And Dinwiddie gives 2 option plays where Chad can hand it off or take it and get it around the outside. Both times, to me, it looked like the handoff inside was there, but Chad pulls it and off he goes around the outside and gets stuffed. And he gets stuffed again. And on 3rd down, Dinwiddie was smart enough, he just didn't give him the option. It was a straight, basically almost a straight dive. You hand this ball off to Carey, and they get an easy touchdown. He walks in. You know. So again, everybody likes the scoring. Everybody likes the personal glory, but the Chad's got to learn it's more about the team than him. Toronto did dominate through the first half. They were calling a lot of their offensive plays right up at the line, going basically tempo, and that was keeping Ottawa's defense a bit off balance. Brown made some spectacular plays. There was a screen pass where his line just released the D-line way too quick, and they were on top of him before he could even move, and yet he somehow still got the ball out, completed it, and got a reasonable gain out of it. But they just couldn't get any the Red Blacks just couldn't get any consistent rhythm going. Things were not working with them. And with the Argos, it was still a high efficiency offense, just scoring pretty much at will. Until at one point in the second there, they called a flea flicker play. They probably didn't have to, but what the heck, we'll do it. And it didn't work. And it really seemed to get in the Chad's head because his accuracy, frankly, kind of went for crap for a while after that. And even when he got the halftime interview, the first thing that he mentioned, unprompted by them, was, "Oh, I missed that flea flicker," and then he was criticizing himself about stuff, and it seemed like he was dwelling on it. And again, why do we only see the Chad when at halftime interviews when they're winning? Why? How come when they're losing, he's never out there accounting for what happens? I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse on that, but it's a question. So anyway, Toronto racks up another 10 points in the third quarter while the Red Blacks don't get anything. And then suddenly in the fourth, the Red Blacks start showing some life. They get a touchdown to Addison early in the fourth. And I loved his non-celebration with the touchdown. Because he went in standing up, just right at the corner of the end zone. And they're way down. There's no reason to celebrate. So he didn't celebrate. But anybody who saw this, you've got to love it. He ran to the very front of the end zone, reached in and put the ball just inside the pylon, and then went off to the bench with a smile on his face. And the message to me was clear. It was, yeah, I did that, but we got a bunch more to do, so let's get back to work. I loved it. Thank you very much, Raylan Addison. I love a player that brings some life to the game. Now, the Red Black then kicked off and recovered, got a fumble from Janarian Grant on the return. Recovered it, looks like, okay, maybe we're going somewhere now. But they threw an interception right away. So no, they weren't going anywhere. Then they get the ball back. And they're still down by a chunk, and I mean, it's whatever, and game's over, right? They get the ball back, and they march, and they look like maybe they're going to at least score some garbage time points, but they end up giving it a turnover on downs. Okay, so now, like I said, this time of year, the games get boring, and just as a fan, I'm going to stay and watch it through so that I can tell you what I've seen and everything, but it's getting hard to pay attention, and we get under the 3-minute warning, and suddenly, whoa, look what happens. Pimpleton's out there fighting for every yard he can on the punt returns and whatnot. He's just not giving up. The team is still trying hard. Suddenly, they score a touchdown. Brown is finding huge holes in the Argos secondary. Touchdown, yay, well, that's a little closer at least. Let's go for the onside kick. And they get the onside kick in a bouncing thing. Okay, good. And they score another touchdown. Wow. Okay, good. Let's go for another onside kick. And they do with another identical, bouncy, beautiful, one of the best onside kicks I've ever seen done twice in the game. And they recover it. And they get a field goal. So now they're down by, I think 7 points. And TSN does a scan of the crowd, and we see the crowd, and we see Pinball Clements, and they're all a lot less jubilant than they were about, even half an hour ago, maybe 10 minutes ago. And all this has happened. There's still like a minute left on the clock. So they go for their third onside kick. And again, this is a hard call to make. What are you going to do with it? The first two had worked perfectly. I personally probably would have done the same thing again, but they decided instead of doing a bouncing one where they were trying to confuse them, they went for a sky ball that they could go up and compete on the leap and didn't get it. I think personally I would have gone with what they did the first way, or I would have done one of Brett Lowther's sort of patented just 10-yard dribbles and go up and get it, because I believe, if I remember right, there was a hole there from them. But regardless, they're coaching, they do what they do. They still get the ball back, managed to stop Toronto. Even though Toronto's recovered an onside kick at their own, 40 or so, they end up back far enough that they don't bother to try the field goal. Toronto decides to punt and pin Ottawa deep with not too much time left in the clock. We get a quick shot of Liram can't even say this. We get a quick shot of Liram Hairulahu. Close enough. Sorry, Liram. Anyway, on the sidelines, and he looked pissed that he wasn't getting a chance to kick another field goal and just put it away. But anyway, they give it back. Ottawa does their best. They come back. They run out of time. They end up on one of these plays where it's who's got the ball running down the field, fumble, lateral, a lateral fest. The only thing we were missing was having the marching band come onto the field. But in the end, they came up a touchdown short. So what's that going to mean when Ottawa has to go back in 2 weeks and play against Toronto? I don't know. Just a couple of quick hitters on this, too. Other last little thoughts on the game. I think Dwayne Ford may have a bit of a man crush on the Chad, because he doesn't seem to think that quarterback can do anything wrong. He can do no wrong at all. Everything's an excuse. It's the receiver's wrong or somebody else. Or actually, maybe he's just got a PR job for the Argos, because he was gushing over the whole Argos team like a little 3-year-old girl over My Little Pony or or whatever the hot toy is right now. Anyway, but uh, we got a nice shot of the Argos special teams coordinator, Mickey Donovan, after the Red Black had managed to complete that second onside kick and recover it. We saw what his reaction was. It was only one word, and it was the one word that you don't have to be a lip reader to understand. What else can we talk about? I know how much all of you CFL fans out there, how much you love the air horns out in Montreal. Well, everybody's got to be just celebrating to see that this game, there wasn't an Alouette to be seen. We're in BMO, and there were the air horns. I'm sure everybody's going to be thrilled. Which takes us on to the last game of the weekend. Only 3 this week to get us through. Game 3, Montreal 3 at BC 27. Consistently inconsistent. Yeah, the Lions. They started. Lions did with VA on fire. 2 quick touchdowns. Boom, boom, boom. Then things kind of settled down into a regular, boring back and forth flow for the rest of the first half. Second half ended up with a potential fumble by Montreal in the kick return, but we don't know for sure because they only showed one quick replay of it, and it looked to me like maybe it was out, but the officials just awarded Montreal the first down. No question, no review, nothing like that. Nothing to see here, let's move on. And of course BC couldn't challenge because Coach Campbell had already gone fishing in the first half, trying to salvage a play with a challenge which he knew he couldn't win, and so he had none left. So that worked out okay for Montreal. And in the second half there, Montreal also started putting a spy on Adams and changed how they did it back and forth. It wasn't consistent, but it was more of it, and they held him basically in check. I think they only gave up 10 points through the second quarter, with the exception, well, part of the 10 points, there was one touchdown drive suddenly at I think early in the second half, maybe midway through the third quarter. They go on a 4-play, 72-yard drive where Adams just has them cutting through the Montreal defense like a hot knife through butter. I don't know what was different. I'd love to know. I would love to be able to see. Yeah, this is me kind of beating the dead horse of TSN. Give us some kind of an all-24 view, please. But anyway, like I said, so Montreal holds BC to 10 points in the second half. They made some very nice plays. Ento had a fantastic knockdown, saved a pass bat down that saved a touchdown right down on the goal line. Just barely got there and got his fingertips on it. That was nice. And then they snuffed out the drive after that when Beverette managed to pick off a ball that Hollins was lying on the ground juggling with for some reason, and then tossed it to Beverette. So Montreal had their chances, but they were just snake bit. They even in the second half, they finally get down and they get a quarterback sneak, a 1-yard plunge, and they're in the end zone, so they finally get a touchdown. But one of their guards has moved, and it's an illegal procedure. They're back 5 yards. They don't get in. They have to kick a field goal. They're only points for the game. Just one of them games. A few, again, quick things about this game. Hopefully nothing for the Lions to worry about. But there was a play late in the game where Adams was completing a pass, completed it. His follow-through may have taken his hand down and smashed on a helmet. It was hard to see. I tried to replay it but couldn't tell. But afterwards he was rolling his wrist and moving it and kind of favoring it a bit. So I hope he's okay. It's a good thing they got the bye week. I'm sure if it was a problem they'd tell us. I don't think so, because apparently Coach Campbell has already said he's starting the playoff game against whoever it is. Nothing like giving a team lots of warning on who the quarterback will be. That certainly worked out for Edmonton when they announced Trey right out of the bye for 2 weeks against Winnipeg, didn't it? I think that worked. No, maybe it didn't. No yards was being called really tight in this game. At least if you were Montreal punting, didn't seem to happen quite so much the other way, but... And I was really surprised to see Montreal linemen get an unnecessary roughness for what I think Suter called a cruising the pile hit, but it wasn't. The play was still going on. The running back had the ball, was pushing his way forward against 2 or 3 defenders. Offensive linemen come in and push the pile all the time without a penalty. This time, suddenly it's a penalty. I don't know. Embrace the chaos, baby. Don't try to make sense of it. It's the CFL. There was also a point where Suits and Nielsen acknowledged that Andy Fantus was in the control center reviewing the plays that night, and they gave us that shot of the control center, and Andy turned around and waved, which, first time this season, that shot has enhanced my viewing pleasure. So I guess it was worth putting up with all year just to get that. What else can we talk about? Oh, yes. Apparently, when Dante Williams picks up Khalil Pimpleton like a little baby and slams him into the ground, it's an unnecessary roughness penalty that everybody in the league is appalled at, and a 1-game suspension. When Ben Vladeck does the same thing to Dominic Davis down on the goal line, it's a great touchdown-saving play. Where's the difference? Embrace the chaos, baby. It's the CFL. It doesn't have to make sense. Much it for the games themselves, but I do have one other interesting extra point here at the end. I thought there was a real interesting contrast in halftime interviews during Saturday. In the Toronto-Ottawa game, as I mentioned earlier, the Chad got the halftime interview. And he was complaining about the fact that he missed the flea flicker and they should have done that. And he was talking about all the shortcomings that he did and kind of implying that the team wasn't playing as well as they had to be and things had to be better and stuff. Meanwhile, in the BC-Montreal game, Vernon's up by a bunch and they give him the interview. And what does he talk about? How great everybody on the team is playing. How much the team is finally getting rhythm. How they're making him look good. Nothing about him. All about pumping up the team. You pick which is the class act. And that about brings us to this week's gambling advice. Back to 4 games this week. Tough gambling because you don't know who's going to be playing what, where. The games mostly mean nothing. You know, so my advice this week is when you start looking at the games, this week's gambling would be don't. Thanks for stopping by. Please remember to do all the stuff, share, subscribe. Apparently, I'm supposed to tell you also to hit that notification bell because that matters now too. I don't know why, but the gurus say it matters. So, okay. Leave a comment. Actually, first of all, if you're listening on a podcatcher, if you're on a podcast, give us a rating or a review there. A nice 5-star rating is good. I think I mentioned last week, 5 or 1. Anything in between doesn't matter. I prefer 5s, but if I'm really terrible, you want to cancel me, give me a 1. That's okay. And I like to hear comments too, whether they're positive or constructively critical. I'm good with that either way. Leave them right. If you're on YouTube here, there's a space to leave the comments right down below there. If not, I'll put my email back down here again. Oldman, all one word, .shoutingatclouds, all one word, at shaw, shaw.ca. Nice and easy. Get in touch. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. What can I do more of? What can I do less of? And of course, just keep on mashing that like button. Likes help me out a lot. Thank you for that. We're in our last week. After this, we're into the playoffs, and who knows where it's going to go. So let's hope we get some good football. Could be, who knows? This whole season has been unpredictable. I have no idea. What are we going to see? You know, hopefully nobody gets hurt going into the playoffs. That's the main thing. Given the way that this season has gone, I figure Montreal's going to possibly, well, I don't think this because I didn't do it in Pick'em, but it wouldn't surprise me if Montreal somehow plays a late play and manages to pull out the game and leave first place available for Saskatchewan in the West. And then Saskatchewan will go out against that helpless Calgary team and somehow drop a game. That would be about the right wrap up for this season. It's been such a weird one. Luckily, it's been so much fun too. So let's enjoy our last weekend. I wish you lots of luck with your fantasy and pick'em for this here last week. And until next week, get the hell off my lawn.